Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how you can create a timeline like this in Excel to use on your pivot table, so that way you can zoom into a specific range that you want to look at. And this is particularly useful if you've got a huge data set spanning many years, maybe even decades, and you don't want a huge chart that may be hard to read through. And so what I'm going to do is show you how to create this using a data set. So here I've got GDP data by country, and this spans decades going back to the 1940s. And so I don't want to plot that all on one chart. It's going to be really messy and hard to read. The one thing that's important to note when you're creating a timeline is you need to have a date value. So for example, in this case, I just had this kind of information where I've got a year dash quarter, which isn't terribly helpful because I need that to be in a date format. So what I did was I parsed out the year, parsed out the quarter, and then did a lookup to say, okay, if it's Q1, let's say it's March 31st, Q2, June 30th, and so on. I stitched that all together, so I've got this date value to reference. And now that I've got that date value, what I can do is now create a pivot table. So go insert pivot table. I'm going to go back to my existing worksheet over here. And now what I'm going to do is that date value, I'm going to make it going down. And this really doesn't matter just because I can hide this pivot table. I don't really actually need to see it. And then I'm going to pull in those GDP values and also add the location filter. So if I want to select a certain country, then it's filtered by that. So what I can now do is go to insert a chart, and obviously a line chart is going to be ideal for a data series, or for a time series I should say. And the way that you can add this timeline is the same way you would add a slicer. If you go to the Insert tab, there's an option for timeline right here, right next to the slicer. And if I do that, obviously it's only going to allow me to select the date value, because that's the only thing I have that's in a date format. So I've got that in there, and so what I can do is move this over top. And right now it's giving me months, which obviously when you've got a huge data set like this that's going back a long time, this is not going to be very helpful. I could go by quarters if I wanted to. Perhaps that might be easier. Or I could just do years, just because of how big this data set is. Years probably makes more sense. So for instance, if I select 2021 or just drag this, now it's just going to show me the years that are within this range. If I want to just select 2012, if there's nothing in there, I want to make sure I select enough that I've got something in there. And on top of this, you could still add your regular filter or your regular slicers. Like let's say I wanted to add one for the location. Now I can select the different countries. Let's say this is Belgium. Select the different ranges. Switch over to Canada, and so it makes your dashboard a bit more flexible and easy to maneuver. Because obviously, if you just had text values for the years, it'd be a lot more difficult to generate this sort of effect where you can easily scroll through and select what periods you want to be looking for. So it makes it really user friendly to adjust and make your chart a lot more flexible. So that's how you create a timeline in Excel.